Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Scott Harvey, a large, older gentleman. I want to welcome you to First Unitarian Church. Oh, by the way, my pronouns are he, him, his. And our mission here is to explore the eternal, nurture community, and pursue the common good. We welcome you in your brokenness and in your wholeness, no matter who you have been, who you are, or who you are becoming. We greet you today with love. I'd like to extend a special welcome to everyone who is watching us on YouTube this morning. During the prelude, please introduce yourself in the comments and let us know where you're joining us from. If you're in OKC, what neighborhood you're in, or if you're elsewhere, what city are you in? And now the prelude prepares us for worship. We light our chalice here in our building in Midtown, Oklahoma City. We are on land that was home to indigenous peoples, including the Apache, Caddo, and Wichita, and on land that was taken from the Muskogee, the Seminole, and other removed and relocated peoples. We light the chalice as a symbol of our sacred time together. The burning chalice represents the light of reason and science, the warmth of loving community, the cleansing heat of justice, and the flame of hope. Our candle of remembrance has been lit today in memory of longtime member Margaret Roseboom. Margaret died peacefully on the evening of Tuesday, June 12th, surrounded by her family. There will be a memorial service at First Unitarian Church in the future, date to be determined at a later time. So let's keep Margaret and her family in our thoughts and prayers.
Again, welcome. I am the Reverend Sue Redfern Campbell, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. For those in our community who are blind or visually impaired, or who are joining us online without video, I am a short Euro-American woman. I have short brown and gray hair, and today I'm wearing a lot of different shades of blue and a little bit of green. And I have a blue stole with chalices on it that I got at General Assembly. And I have my trusty cane with me. Here at First Unitarian, there is a commitment to sharing pronouns and offering self-descriptions as part of the effort to ensure that no one is excluded from full participation in the life of our church. In this spirit of inclusion, our sanctuary is equipped with a telecoil hearing loop system. And to learn how to access this, you can see your hearing aid provider. We also have large print orders of service and hymnals, which are available at the back of the sanctuary. Our ushers today are members of the Racial Justice Team. The Racial Justice Team is committed to racial justice and the dismantling of a white supremacy culture within ourselves, our congregation, our faith, and our community. Their goals are first, to facilitate opportunities to learn about racism and white privilege, and second, to support and strengthen relationships with local communities most affected by systemic and institutional racism, those organizations that are already doing anti-racism work. If you are interested in being involved with this team, please speak with any usher after the service. You'll find brief announcements of upcoming events on the back of your order of service. If you want contact information for the people listed, Marlise Grogg in the church office can help you with that. And of course, there are lots of announcements of coming events on our website. As we continue into our sacred time together, let's take a deep breath, at least one. Breathing helps us let go of whatever is getting in our way of just being present. And I invite you to keep centering in with these words from the vision of Heraclitus of Ephesus, a Greek philosopher. Whoever wishes to know about the world must learn about it in its particular details. Knowledge is not intelligence. In searching for the truth, be ready for the unexpected. Change alone is unchanging. The same road goes both up and down. The beginning of a circle is also its end. Not I, but the world says it. All is one. And yet everything comes in its own season. I invite you to join Diane Broyles, our song leader today, and me in singing our opening hymn. It's by Canadian Unitarian singer-songwriter Joyce Poley, number 108 in the turquoise hymnal, Singing the Journey, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place.
When our heart is in a holy place. Hello. All right, that is on. Well, good morning. My name is Tim Atkins, and I serve as your Director of Lifespan Religious Exploration. I'm both big and tall, wearing rainbow glasses, a rainbow striped gingham shirt, and I am here to do an exit interview with Reverend Sue. Like we started off with a little interview, we're going to close with an interview. So, Reverend Sue, it's your last week. It's your last Sunday. What have you appreciated most about your time here in Oklahoma City?
Thanks, Tim. It probably sounds like a facile answer, but the people are really what makes this place the holy place that it is. When I look out over the congregation and think about my conversations with you, sometimes extended, sometimes short, it's just been a really sacred and precious time for me. So the church, although I love this building, the church is its people, not its building.
Absolutely. Totally agree. So speaking of people, what is next for you personally?
Well, I am going to be preaching about entering the unknown, and I am entering the unknown myself. I know what I'm doing for the next few months. I'm driving home to Albuquerque on next Monday, and with Phoenix, the cat, and settling back in and probably seeing if there's any chance of having a garden this summer. And probably catching up on some sleep, and then I've got tickets to go to Alaska to visit my step-grandson and his beloved, his wife Becky. I love them both. I have a family diaspora, and Jeff and Becky are kind of a moving target because Jeff is in the Air Force, so I've visited them in many places.
Still, Alaska seems like a lovely place to visit this time of year. Yes, especially in August. I'll be thinking about that, yes. So what's something you hope our church takes away from our past 3 months with you serving as our minister?
I think the thing that pops up for me is just having a different style of ministry for a few months. I don't know how my style might be different from Reverend Diana's. I think probably that we have some things in common and some things in which our style is very different. And it's just good for a congregation to get used to people with different ways of doing ministry. So I guess that's my main thought about that.
And just as we've been changed by your time with us, you've been changed by your time with us. So what's something you'll be taking away from your time with us?
Happy memories. And I think, I will have Oklahoma. I've been to all 50 states. Oklahoma was number 49. Wow. Oh, wow. And I have passed through it a few times, once overnight last summer when I went to the First Americans Museum and ate in Bricktown. But I think a deeper understanding of Oklahomans and the variety of people who live here. And I think we've talked about this, a deep conviction about the importance of a liberal or progressive church in a red state. I've just seen it happen.
All right, so a little bit more lighthearted. One of the things we talk about is food at our staff meetings. So what has been your favorite restaurant here in Oklahoma City?
Well, I think of two places, and one of them sounds probably very contrarian. The absolute best food that I've had is at Formosa Street Food next to the Tower Theater. Just everything that I've ordered has been cooked to just perfection. And they have a wide variety. I'm not really here to give a plug for them, but
Look under your seats for a gift card.
right. Yeah, but I haven't been to a lot of really fancy places here, so I'm really talking about the budget places where the food has just been so tasty and beautifully prepared. My second favorite would have to be the bar and the bar food at the top of the Ambassador Hotel, which is, easy walking distance from here, and there really is a lovely view of the city. So every once in a while I'll go up for some charcuterie or something and take in the view. And it's nice to get perspective.
All right, and my last question to you is reflecting back on not just your time here at the church, but really your time as an Oklahoma resident for 3 months. What do you think a few months from now you'll remember the most about your time here in Oklahoma City?
In addition to the church? In addition to the church, I'd have to say the National Memorial and Museum. I've been through it, well, just the once, really, with you, and briefly another time. And I've been through the outdoor part of it and the chairs. And I've read about it and how it's shaped the city. And I will go back before I head out in my car on Monday to, if I had to name one thing of many wonderful experiences outside the church, that would be it. Oh, yes, and now I have a question for you. What's next for this church?
So what's next for the church? Today we say goodbye to Reverend Sue. And we will, over the summer, be having a series of guest ministers, lay-led services, and more that will lead us through early September in our in-gathering service. I will be acting as the temporary head of staff during this time. So congregants, if you have questions about anything, you can come to me. And I'll be helping to coordinate all the Sunday morning services, but I am not preaching all the Sunday morning services. And then we are still looking for the contract minister come fall. And you'll hear more about what may be coming in the fall as we get closer to that time. But for now, it's going to be a summer of guest ministers, lay-led ministers, and as a reminder to everybody, we do not have a service on June 30th. We are all going to the Pride Parade instead that morning. So no worship on June 30th, 2 weeks from today. And I just want to, on behalf of everybody here, thank you, Reverend Sue, for spending this 3 months to help us out with this ministerial transition. And we want to invite everyone to a reception for Reverend Sue after the service in Daniel Hall. Thank you.
And Tim, I wish you well as head of staff.
Thank you. And now we'd like to invite Scott for our invitation to the offering. I lied. The reflection before the invitation to the offering.
I mean, I could stand up here and ask for money, but it's not the right time. June 16th. It's a special day for me. It's Father's Day, but it's also the day I started work after graduating college 44 years ago. The summer of 1980 was the hottest since the Dust Bowl, and I thought, what have I gotten myself into? This was before climate change was really a thing, and a young man was expected to have a career and eventually support a family. Those were the expectations I had after seeing my father and grandfather and seeing how they lived their lives. My mom's father was Edwin Cruikshank, a Scotsman who owned a filling station during the Great Depression, and that was after he was mustard gassed in World War I. A scratch golfer and distinguished gentleman, he loved the bagpipes. My grandparents lived in the garage apartment of my parents' home for a while when I was growing up. And my grandfather would walk over to Woodward Park in Tulsa on Saturday mornings to hear a lone bagpiper play songs. I idolized my father, a hospital administrator in Tulsa. My brother and I each had to deal with being Mr. Harvey's son. After my dad died in 2008, we had an entire house full of things to go through. Among the things I couldn't throw away were all of the awards, plaques, medals, commendations. I started sorting through them again this past week, taking pictures and saving frames. A man's career synopsized by things. I couldn't just throw them away. Well, the time has come. It's not fair to one's descendants to leave your stuff and your parents' stuff for them to go through once we depart. I'm pretty sure we still have the marriage certificate for my great-grandparents, I think, one of those big turn-of-the-century marriage. I mean, how do you it's 100 years old. Nobody cares, but it's hard to get rid of, right? Because memories are what we're left with. And those memories can be a powerful remedy for whatever ails you that day. And laughter, of course, learning that it's not just okay to laugh, it's essential. So I'm building new memories with my 5-year-old grandson, Rowan. I'm convinced that interacting with him is creating new connections in my brain. Creative play and a sense of wonder can take you a long way in life, and tickling some of those old memories gives me a sense of renewal and joy. I may have shared with you before the impact that Apollo 8 had on me. I was 10 years old, and we watched TV. We watched the human beings circle the moon for the first time, and we happened to be in Hawaii. Sitting on my father's shoulders, I could see the astronauts come off the plane at Hickam Air Force Base. And my fascination with the universe has never receded since that time. I'm an amateur cosmologist because our existence here fills me with awe. I hope as a grandfather I can share that. But more generally, as a grandfather figure, I hope to share a sense of wonder and a sense of humor with others. Another favorite memory that I have of my father was when he would sit down at the piano and play a rousing rendition of Sioux City Sue, a Gene Autry song in which a man offers to trade his horse and dog for true love. You can't get more serious than that, right? Sioux City Sue, Sioux City Sue, your hair is red, your eyes are blue, I'd swap my horse and dog for you. We just thought that was hilarious, right? It's so inappropriate in so many ways. But better yet, he would play the William Tell Overture, and I would ride my stick horse through the house. And my parents got a big kick out of that. Well, I'm not sure why I took up piano a couple of years ago. Perhaps it was the memory of my father playing piano. Surely it's better than taking up bagpipes. Right, Maureen? Yes. Music is something that travels across generations, and I hope to share my love of music with Rowan. And as an aside, the piano we have at home used to belong to Margaret Roseboom. And maybe that's why I've been able to play it. It's just a smart piano. So, filling the role of grandfather has meant a lot to me. Having a 5-year-old boy around who likes to dream and play and build and laugh and sing and consult about playground equipment and look at the stars, in addition to making me realize how very lucky I am, makes me think that playfulness truly is next to godliness.
Good morning. My name is Fenton Rude. I'm active with the Sustainable Living Organization. I'm an old white guy. Today, I'm wearing an orange shirt, which is ironic because I have 2 degrees from OU. Brown hat. And every Sunday we take an offering. Since 2002, all the cash and designated checks from that offering have gone directly to external nonprofit organizations doing good work, our Change for Change partners. For June, our partner is Oklahoma City Beautiful. I serve on the board of directors for Oklahoma City Beautiful, and it has become one of the most dynamic forces for sustainability in the community of Oklahoma City. The particular project that we are supporting is we're launching a new school garden at Esperanza Elementary, which is an elementary school near the stockyards. For those of you who are in the sanctuary with us today, in just a moment, we'll pass the offering plate. We know that many of you prefer to mail in a check or make your donation to Change for Change online. You can always make your gift by mailing a check to First Unitarian. Just write Change for Change on the memo line, or make an online payment through our website, oneuc.org. And I will be at the Sustainable Living table and coffee hour, and I'll have more information about this project. So thank you.
I invite you now into a time of meditation or prayer. The words for meditation this morning are a short poem by Christine McDougall. The space between neither this nor that, ripe, potent, uncertain, shaky, a downing, a dusking, the imminent threshold emerging, crossing to what? Slow down. The moment is calling you to pay exquisite attention. Let's be together in silence for a few moments. Amen. So be it. Blessed be. A story is told about President Calvin Coolidge, who was well known for being a man of few words. One Sunday, Calvin Coolidge came home from church and his wife asked, "What did the preacher preach about?" "Sin," was the reply. Mrs. Coolidge pressed him, "Well, what did he say about sin?" The president replied, "He was against it." So we can imagine a similar conversation with a one-word substitution. What did the preacher preach about? Change. Well, what did she say about change? She was against it. Resistance to change is easy to find in politics, in family life, and of course, in church. A classic example that I always remember comes from my student ministry at King's Chapel in Boston, one of Boston's historic Unitarian churches. In the early 1980s, when I was a student there, a committee was hard at work revising the church's prayer book. And that a UU church even had a prayer book tells us something about their relationship to change. As part of its work, the committee brought in liturgical experts from different faith traditions, and each gave a Saturday workshop and then preached a Sunday service. At one such service, when the preacher was introduced as a leader in liturgical renewal, the voice of a beloved matriarch could be heard across the sanctuary. "But I don't want it renewed. I don't want it renewed." Well, we can chuckle at that, but at the same time, I'm guessing that maybe we can sympathize. Here at First Unitarian and at liberal churches in general, I think most people think of themselves as being open to change. Nevertheless, I suspect that even the most flexible religious liberal has a sticking point about something. There's something in their community's tradition about which they say, "Don't you dare touch that. I don't want it renewed." It might be a specific hymn. You can change the hymn lyrics all you want, but don't mess with that one. It could be the way the church is governed or the way the pledge drive is conducted. And as is happening right now at the denominational level, it could be Article 2 of the UUA bylaws. Resistance to change isn't surprising. When something we love is changed, there's always some loss, at least a little bit. Church leaders, both lay and clergy, are wise to remember that. When we encounter resistance to anything that's a departure from former ways of doing or being, We're more likely to move through it if we acknowledge that sense of loss among some folks and treat the resistors with compassion. Change can bring loss even when the change is for the better. The late William Bridges was an organizational consultant who wrote extensively about change and transitions. You may be familiar with his work. Dr. Bridges suggested that every time something comes to an end, there's a little death. And that can be true even when we've chosen the endings. It's true even when we know that something new and redemptive will come to take the place of the old. It can go to the core of our identity, our sense of ourselves. As an example, William Bridges wrote of a young woman he knew who had just become a mother. This represented a wonderful new beginning in her life. She was excited. Her spouse was excited. Everybody in their family and friends were excited. But in the midst of the excitement, one part of the young woman was grieving. "My old life is gone," she said. "How come nobody talks about that?" Once in a while, not here, I actually do hear people say that they are against change. But if we think about it, a statement like that is meaningless. As a category, change is neutral. It can be positive, negative, neutral, some of each. And even when it's unquestionably good or bad, there may still be some ambiguity. Chances are a change involves both loss and gain. It means moving forward and leaving behind. It entails saying hello and saying goodbye. Remembering this may help us face the changes that are foisted on us, and even some of the welcome ones. Dr. Bridges made it its life work to study not change per se, but transitions. He saw change as a category as external. Something different happens on the outside, in our surroundings. An organization moves to a new site. The company's founder retires. A minister or a staff person leaves and another one arrives. Or something truly difficult happens, like a pandemic and a shutdown. To navigate that external change successfully, whether it is welcome or not, an internal transition must accompany it. This transition is inner work, work of the heart and soul. In Dr. Bridges' view, it's a process we must go through as we take in the new situation, adapt, come to terms with it. In his framework, the process of transition, of coming to terms with change, has 3 stages. The first stage probably sounds counterintuitive. In the beginning, there's an ending. A significant change is made by us or someone else, or perhaps it just happens, it's out of our control. Either way, there's a loss. We must let go of the old ways and the old identity we had. Before we begin something new, we have to end what used to be. Or as the French writer Anatole France once said, "All changes, even the most longed for, have their melancholy. For what we leave behind is part of ourselves. We must die to one life before we can enter another." At the other end of the transition is the new beginning. New beginnings involve new understandings, new values, new attitudes, and most of all, new identities. And along with the new identity, we hope comes new energy, a new sense of purpose. But none of this will happen, Bridges says, until we pass through the neutral zone. The neutral zone is the in-between time when the old is gone, but the new isn't fully operational. We see the neutral zone in classic spiritual literature. The ancient Israelites have to wander in the desert for 40 years before they can enter the promised land. And in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the soul has to spend time in the bardo before entering new life. In Dante's Divine Comedy, the soul can't get to paradise without first emerging from hell and then climbing the mountain of purgatory. We can also see the neutral zone in nature. A great example is that of metamorphosis, for instance, when a caterpillar transforms into a butterfly. Inside the chrysalis, what had been a caterpillar dissolves. It becomes instead a mass of goo, a genetic soup cooking up something new, as Karen Hearing, UU minister, puts in her book, Trusting Change. The agricultural cycle gives us another image. Agriculturally, the neutral zone is the fallow time, when earth rests and renews itself, a lot of it underground and unseen. And thus we might think of the neutral zone as the fallow time in our lives. We might also call it soul time. Soul time is unproductive in any conventional sense of productivity, but in the soul's economy, it may be the most productive and creative and the most necessary time of all. In the neutral zone, we have the space to let the changes sink in. We have the freedom to pay attention to what's changing about our lives. We can acknowledge the life we've left behind and allow something new to emerge. We can acknowledge and grieve the sense of self we've lost as we make way for what is coming. So-called primitive societies, in quotes, have a wisdom about all this that our late capitalism has often lost sight of. These societies have formal, planned ways for people to undergo life passages. As Dr. Bridges notes, in other times and places, the person in transition left the village and went into an unfamiliar stretch of forest or desert. This was the time between dreams in which fundamental chaos of the world's beginnings welled up and obliterated all forms. This was a place without a name, an empty space in the world and the lifetime where a new sense of self could gestate. One of Bridges' clients, who had never gone anywhere by herself in her whole life, took 4 days to backpack alone in the mountains. She later called them the strangest 4 days of my life. Before going, her concerned husband had asked, "Where can we reach you?" She replied, "You can't, but I'll be back." And she was. And that reminds me of the practice of sabbaticals in ministry, maybe to some extent in academia as well. Since COVID, I've served 2 short-term sabbatical ministries in which colleagues confessed to being exhausted from the increase in workload from the pandemic. Of course, ministers weren't the only ones to experience this. Staff and lay leaders felt it too. One clergy colleague confessed before her sabbatical that she had started to feel like a human doing, not a human being. It was time for a reset. Like the solitary backpacker, this minister went off, this time for 4 months, and she told her congregation, "You can't reach me during this time, but I'll be back." And she was. Endings and beginnings tend to be characterized by doing something, but the neutral zone in between them is a time where we have the chance to just be. In the process, we might rediscover ourselves as human beings, not human doings. And in the neutral zone, it might seem as though nothing is happening, but that's not quite true. Something is happening, something important, but it's underground. In Bridges' words, in the neutral zone, there is often little to do except to wait watchfully as the closer edge of your new life begins to come into focus, rising up out of the depths beyond your sight. Or as Christine McDougall wrote, pay exquisite attention. And what about this beloved congregation? My sense is actually that you have been through a long series of transitions and changes since 2015, starting with the departures of Reverend John Alou and Reverend Mark. During the time in between, you've experienced an interim ministry, you've welcomed a new minister, you've gone through COVID and everything that accompanies it, you've witnessed the retirement of beloved staff members, and you've welcomed Tim, a new religious educator, who you will now welcome in a different role for a time. More recently, you've said heartfelt goodbyes to Reverend Diana, and you've welcomed me. Thank you very much. And of course, you knew that I was temporary from the start. And now you're entering unknown territory, a neutral zone perhaps, or it might be called a liminal time, a threshold time. Now, it's possible that in the past you've experienced times without ordained clergy, but if you have, my sense is that it's been a very long time. And plans are in place to navigate the terrain that you are about to enter, and how long the journey will take, we hope it's not too long, but we don't really know. Congregational consultant Susan Beaumont wrote a book with the title, How to Lead When You Don't Know Where You're Going. As soon as I heard of that book, I knew I had to read it, and then she offered a course with the same title, and I knew I had to take it. How to lead when you don't know where you're going. Although you have a good idea of where you think you're headed, where you want to go, it's going to be hard to make plans for more than a few months ahead. And yet, I have every confidence that you will navigate this terrain well. I invite you to think of it as a fruitful and creative time for reflection, time for discovery of new possibilities, time to think about, in Theodore Parker's words, what is the transient and what is the permanent, or at least semi-permanent, what is lasting in our congregation's life. One of the shifts that Susan Beaumont suggests for the unknown time, the liminal time, is going from decision-making to discernment. Discernment is about, at least in some cases, suspending the need for the closure that comes with decision-making and rather paying exquisite attention to what's happening now. What is history asking of us in this time and space? What is First Unitarian being called to now? Who has the Spirit been leading to us now, and who will it lead to us? And what gifts do we bring to this beautiful, hurting world? And I invite each one of you to ask as well, what am I being called to now? What have I discovered about myself during COVID and in the time since the worst of it? What gifts do I bring now to this beloved community? Slow down. This moment is calling you to pay exquisite attention. Amen. So I invite you to singing a hymn that's original title was Prayer for This House. The hymnal always uses the first lines, so in the hymnal it's Let Nothing Evil Cross This Door. Hymn number 1, Prayer for This House. Steve, perhaps you could, oh, I see the flame is extinguished. So, we have extinguished this flame, but not the light of love and community which burns on in our hearts. And I close with these words from Howard Thurman. Hope is the growing edge. Let us look well to that growing edge in these times. All around, worlds are dying out and new worlds are being born. All around, life is dying, but life is being born. The fruit ripens on the trees while the roots are silently at work in the earth, against a time when there shall be new leaves, fresh blossoms, green fruit. Such is the growing edge. It is the one more thing to try when all else has failed, the upward reach of life. It is the incentive to carry on. Therefore, today, let us keep alive the flame of hope in our hearts, which shall burn all the year long. Blessed be. I invite you, if you wish, to be seated for the postlude, and then I hope to have a chance to greet you at the reception.